You know, life has a way of punching you in the gut when you least expect it. For me, it happened on a random Tuesday. Nothing special about the day. Work sucked. My boss was writing me about some stupid deadline, and the only thing keeping me going was the thought of cracking open a cold beer at home. I'd been married to my wife, Lisa, for 8 years, and while things weren't perfect, I thought we were solid. You never think your life is the one that's going to unravel. Not until it does. So, that Tuesday night, I was looking for some spare batteries for the TV remote. Just another mundane moment in the day. Lisa's been the one who organizes the drawers, so I had to dig through her bedside table. That's when I saw it. A little leather-bound diary tucked under some random junk. I didn't think much of it at first. I didn't even know she kept a diary, but I figured it was harmless, a place for her to write down grocery lists or vent about me leaving my socks on the floor. But as soon as I opened it, I knew I was holding a loaded gun. Her handwriting was all over the page, but it wasn't the neat lists or random scribbles I was expecting. No, these were full-blown entries. Paragraphs. And right there, in black ink that felt like it was burning my eyes, was the first line I read. I can't stop thinking about him. My heart stopped. I swear I could feel the blood drain from my face. I don't know what part of me wanted to keep reading. Maybe it was sheer disbelief, or maybe it was that primal need to understand how your world just went sideways. So, I sat on the edge of the bed, that little book trembling in my hands, and I started to read. Being with him feels so different. It's like he sees me in a way Mark never could. That was my name. Mark. Her husband. The guy who worked 2 jobs so we could afford this house. The guy who thought he was doing okay because Lisa still smiled at him across the dinner table. But here I was, reading about some other guy. Some him. Who apparently had her seeing stars. It got worse. Oh, it got so much worse. She wrote about their conversations, how he makes her laugh in ways I don't anymore. How she felt alive when she was with him. How she loved the way he touched her. How it made her feel wanted. And then, there it was, clear as day. I never meant for it to go this far, but now I can't stop. When we're together, it's like the rest of the world disappears. I slammed the book shut, my hands shaking. I couldn't read another word. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on me. All I could think about was her writing this while I was at work, working hard to keep our lives running smoothly. I trusted her. I'd given her everything. And this was what she did with it. So I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through her texts. It didn't take long to figure out who the guy was. His name was Eric, and the messages between them made me want to put my fist through the wall. They weren't even trying to be subtle. There were, "I miss you" texts, pictures of him that she saved, plans they'd made to meet up while I was at work. One message even had the nerve to read, "I wish I could fall asleep next to you tonight instead of him." I snapped. That's the only way I can describe it. I felt this anger bubbling up inside me, like I was about to explode. I wasn't going to sit around and let this fester. No, I was going to confront her, and I was going to do it right then and there. Lisa came home about an hour later, smiling like nothing was wrong. She had no idea I'd just gone through her entire world. I waited until she put her bag down, and then I held up her diary. "Care to explain this?" I asked, my voice cold. She froze, her eyes darting to the book in my hand. And that's when her smile vanished. For a second, she tried to play it off. "Mark, what are you doing with my diary? What do you think I'm doing with it? You think I wouldn't find this eventually? Or did you just think I was too stupid to figure it out?" My voice was rising, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel every ounce of betrayal that was eating me alive. Her face turned pale and she stammered, "It's not what you think." "Lies," I snapped, throwing the diary onto the table. "You wrote about him, Lisa. You wrote about him like he's the love of your life. Like I'm just some placeholder. Who the hell is Eric?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, tears welling up in her eyes like she was the victim here. That's what pissed me off the most. I was the one who'd been lied to, who'd been cheated on, and she had the nerve to look like she was the one hurting? You don't get to cry, I said, my voice low and venomous. You don't get to stand there and act like this isn't your fault. Mark, I'm sorry, she finally whispered. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I laughed bitterly. You've been sneaking around behind my back, writing love letters in your diary, and it didn't mean anything? Do you think I'm an idiot? At this point, I wasn't even sure what I wanted from her. An apology? The truth? Revenge? All I knew was that the woman I'd spent 8 years of my life with wasn't the person I thought she was. And that realization hit me harder than anything else. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Don't. Just don't. I was done talking. I needed answers, but I wasn't going to get them from her tears and apologies. So I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I needed air. I needed space. And most of all, I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't something you just work through. I drove around aimlessly that night, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My mind was racing, replaying every single moment of my marriage and twisting it into a lie. 8 years. 8 years. And the whole time, Lisa had been hiding this from me, sneaking around like I was some clueless fool. I don't even remember pulling into the parking lot of some rundown bar on the edge of town. I just knew I needed something to keep me from going home and completely losing my mind. So I sat in the dim light, nursing a whiskey, trying to swallow the bile rising in my throat. But here's the thing. Anger doesn't just go away. It festers. It burns. And the more I drank, the more that fire inside me grew. I pulled out my phone, staring at the messages between Lisa and Eric. I still couldn't believe it. This was real. This wasn't some misunderstanding or overreaction. My wife, the woman I had built my life around, was in love with another man. And I wasn't just going to sit back and let her get away with it. I got back home around midnight. The house was dark except for the soft glow from our bedroom. Lisa was still awake. Good. I wanted her to be awake for this. When I walked in, she was sitting on the bed, her eyes puffy from crying. She had the diary in her lap, like she'd been rereading her own words, trying to figure out how to spin them into something less damning. "You're back," she said softly, as if we were just having a normal argument and not a full-blown marriage-ending disaster. Yeah, had to clear my head. I shut the door behind me, leaning against it. But I still don't have an answer, Lisa. Who is Eric? And don't feed me any more lies. She hesitated. For a second, I thought she was going to lie again. But then she sighed, running a shaky hand through her hair. "He's someone I met at work," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "At work," I repeated, my tone dripping with disbelief. "How long?" Silence. "How long, Lisa?" Her eyes darted to the diary, then back to me. And in that moment, I knew she was about to say something that would make me wish I never asked. "Almost a year," she finally said. "A year." I actually laughed. A cold, bitter laugh that didn't sound like me at all. "A year? You've been sneaking around, writing about how much you love him, how much better he makes you feel. For a year." She flinched like I'd hit her. Good. She deserved to feel something close to the pain that was shredding through my chest. "Mark, I never wanted to hurt you," she said weakly. "Oh, shut the hell up with that." I took a step forward, pointing at the diary still clutched in her lap. "You didn't want to hurt me? Then what the hell is this? You didn't just make a mistake, Lisa. This wasn't some drunk one-night stand that you regretted. You were in a full-blown relationship behind my back. You were falling asleep next to me and then sneaking off to meet him, weren't you?" She didn't answer. But she didn't have to. I could see it on her face. I clenched my fists, my whole body trembling with rage. Did you sleep with him in our house? My voice was dangerously low now. Her eyes widened. No. I swear, Mark, I cut her off. Where then? In his car? Some cheap motel? Or did you have a special spot where you two could pretend I didn't exist? She broke down sobbing, her shoulders shaking violently. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I don't care about your tears, Lisa, I said through gritted teeth. I care about the truth. She swallowed hard, her breath hitching. She hesitated, then whispered, we would meet at his place. I closed my eyes, my jaw tightening so hard I thought my teeth would crack. His place. So this wasn't just some emotional affair. This was real, physical, and I was done playing the devastated husband. I needed to see this Eric with my own eyes. The next morning, while Lisa tried to act like she was going to give me space, I had other plans. I wasn't just going to sit back and let this guy walk away like he hadn't just shattered my life. I had his number from the texts. I had his last name from snooping through her phone. And with a little searching, I had his address. By noon, I was sitting outside his apartment complex, gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers ached. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't going to do something that would land me in jail, no matter how much I wanted to. But I wasn't going to let him think he got away with this either. I marched up to his door and pounded on it. It took a few moments before I heard movement inside. Then the door cracked open, and there he was, Eric. Mid-30s, decent looking, but nothing special. Just a regular donkey who thought it was okay to screw around with another man's wife. His eyes widened when he saw me. Can I help you? I didn't say a word at first. I just stared at him, letting the silence do the talking, letting him feel the weight of what he'd done. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, you know who I am. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Look, man. Shut up, I interrupted. You don't get to talk. You already said enough in those texts. He stepped back slightly, his hand tightening on the doorknob like he was ready to slam it in my face. But I wasn't going anywhere. You slept with my wife, I said bluntly. And now, you're going to tell me exactly how this started. He hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. I let out a humorless chuckle. You were fine sneaking around behind my back, but now suddenly you don't want to talk? No? Eric. You were going to talk? He glanced around like he was checking to see if any neighbors were watching. Listen, I didn't mean for this to happen. I took a step closer, towering over him. Oh? You didn't mean to sleep with another man's wife? Must have just tripped and fallen into her, huh? His face flushed. She told me things were bad between you two. That she was unhappy. Oh, so that makes it okay? I scoffed. That gives you the right to take what's mine? Mark, I grabbed his shirt, yanking him forward so we were nose to nose. If I ever see you near her again, I swear to God, you won't walk away from it. Do you understand me? His eyes went wide with fear. Yeah, I get it. I let go of him with a hard shove. Good. I turned and walked away, my blood still boiling. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Lisa thought she could lie to me. Eric thought he could walk away unscathed. They were both about to learn just how wrong they were. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Walking away from Eric's place, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't going to be one of those pathetic stories where the guy gets cheated on and just sits around feeling sorry for himself. No, I was going to make sure they both felt every ounce of pain they put me through. Lisa thought she could play me for a fool. Eric thought he could steal what was mine. They had no idea what was coming. The moment I got back home, Lisa was waiting. She was sitting on the couch, looking guilty. Where were you? She asked, her voice hesitant. I smirked. Talking to Eric. Her face turned ghost white. Good. Let that sink in. You didn't. She stammered. What? Beat his ass? No. But I should have, I said, taking off my jacket and tossing it onto the chair. I just let him know exactly what happens if he ever comes near you again. Her lip trembled like she was about to cry. Mark, please. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed, actually laughed. Hurt me? Lisa, you wrote in your little diary about how much you loved him. You sent him texts about how you wished you could fall asleep next to him instead of me. So don't sit there and act like this was some tiny mistake. She wiped her eyes, but I wasn't buying the crocodile tears anymore. I swear, I was going to end it. Yeah, I scoffed. Then why the hell were you still texting him yesterday? Her face twisted in guilt, and she had nothing to say. Because she knew I caught her. I took a deep breath. I had to play this smart. I wasn't just going to walk away and let her keep her little fairy tale romance going in secret. No, I was going to burn their little world to the ground. So I changed my approach. You want me to believe you're sorry? I asked, my voice calmer now. She nodded furiously. Yes, I swear, Mark, I. Then prove it. She looked confused. What do you mean? I crossed my arms. Tell him it's over. Right now. On speaker. Lisa froze. And in that moment, I knew. She hadn't cut him off. She wasn't planning to cut him off. I leaned forward. What's the hesitation, Lisa? If you really want to fix this, if you really regret what you did, then call him. Right now. Tell him it's over. She swallowed hard, her fingers fidgeting. Mark, I don't know if. I slammed my fist on the table. Do it. She jumped, her hands shaking as she reached for her phone. I watched her unlock it, her thumb hovering over his name. She glanced up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. Do it, I said again, my voice low, controlled. She pressed the call button. I leaned back, arms crossed, staring at her while the phone rang. One ring, two rings. Then, he picked up. Hey, babe. Eric's voice came through the speaker. Babe. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would shatter. Lisa swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. Eric, we can't talk anymore. Silence. Then a confused chuckle. What? Lisa, what's going on? I stared daggers into her. Say it. Her hands trembled. I can't do this anymore. I love Mark, and I want to fix my marriage. The line went silent. Then Eric scoffed. Lisa, what the hell? We just talked yesterday about. Yeah, she did, didn't she? I cut in. Silence. Then Eric cursed under his breath. Jesus Christ, is he there? Yeah, I'm here, I said, standing up. And guess what? Your little affair? It's done. She's choosing me. Lisa looked like she was about to pass out. Eric, on the other hand, lost his cool. You're making a mistake, Lisa, he spat through the phone. You don't love him. We both know that. That's when I saw it, the hesitation in her eyes, the tiny flicker of doubt. And that's when I knew. Even now, even after she got caught, she still wasn't sure. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the phone out of her hands. You listen to me, I said, my voice like steel. You come near my wife again, and I'll make sure you regret it. You can't force her to love you, dude, Eric shot back. If she wanted to stay, she wouldn't have looked for someone else. I saw red. Without another word, I ended the call and threw the phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Lisa gasped, but I didn't care at all. I turned to her, my chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. You still love him, don't you? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And that was my answer. I didn't say another word to her that night. I grabbed my keys, got in my truck, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to be anywhere but there. And that's when I made my decision. Lisa wasn't the woman I married anymore. She was a stranger, a liar, a cheater, and I wasn't going to be some pathetic husband begging her to stay. By the next morning, I had a plan. I walked back into the house, grabbed my laptop, and started going through our finances. Lisa was still asleep, but she'd wake up soon enough. And when she did, she was going to find out exactly what it felt like to lose everything. I filed for divorce that day, and I made sure she got nothing. I called a lawyer, gathered every bit of evidence I had. Her diary, the texts, the call logs. And because we lived in a fault divorce state, her infidelity would cost her. By the time she woke up, I was already packing my bags. She sat up groggily, rubbing her eyes. "Mark, what are you doing?" I didn't even look at her. "Leaving." Her face twisted in panic. "Wait, what? We can work through this." I zipped up my duffel bag. "No, Lisa. You already made your choice." Tears streamed down her face as she stood up. "Mark, please, don't do this." I turned to her, finally meeting her eyes. "You should have thought about that before you wrote about him in your diary." She broke down, sobbing. But I was done. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and stepped out the door. And as I drove away from the house I had worked hard for, the house that now felt like nothing but a graveyard of lies, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Lisa had betrayed me. But I wasn't going to be another weak man clinging to a broken marriage. No, I was walking away, and I was never looking back.